Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, let's let in.
It's so
Woo! And then Dasha will come in a second too. Who knows? It's a Zoom mystery.
technology. My phone woke up dead today. I cannot bring him back to life. I have to go to a store to try to see what happened.
Oh no. What kind of phone is it?
It's an iPhone Plus.
Phone.
Yeah. So, technology challenges.
No.
The most incredible thing is that I went off phone last week.
Uh-huh.
Right? Phone and social media. Now this happens. The phone doesn't want to come back.
We're just waiting for Dasha to come back. We closed and reopened because something weird was going on with sound.
Mm-hmm.
But Dasha will, I'm sure, sign back in a second. Let's see.
Yeah, I could hear her.
Okay, you could hear her.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear either of you. So funny. Come back. And if you can. Cool. So I'm really excited. There's Dash. Yay. Okay. Let's just get her in. I'm super excited because first of all, Dasha is awesome. And Marcia, you don't know Dasha yet, do you?
No, I don't.
Oh my goodness. We're going to have so much fun today. Dasha! Sunshine.
Hello.
Oh my gosh, you're like a beach babe here.
Yeah, where is she?
Oh my goodness. Where are you? In Oakland? Oakland.
California. So it's in the Bay Area, but it's not in San Francisco, like San Francisco, and then across the bay is Oakland. And so I'm in the Oakland Hills.
In the sunshine.
There's finally vitamin D coming at me.
That was me today too. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm really excited because you just made a big announcement that you're kind of like rebranding or kind of expanding this vision for this women's biohacking collective. And I want to hear all about it. Like, this is just, I'm just excited. So can you update me? And you've got all these awesome partners. Like, I didn't know that you knew, so tell us.
Wait, what partners? What?
Well, you're like, so I never pronounce her name right because I don't pronounce anything right and I don't want to offend. Is it Oksana from Oksana? I say it right?
Yeah, Oksana.
So I didn't, you like posted that you guys were partners. I'm like, oh my God, I love her. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Worlds connect and, collide from backwards, sideways. Oh my goodness. So please tell us about your Women's Biohacking Collective initiative because I want to hear all about it.
Sure. So basically, we initially were calling it the Women's Biohacking Collective.
Okay. As I'm describing it, as aptly named.
Basically last year. Also, sorry, I don't know if I know you, Marcia.
Oh, no. I
don't think so.
We have Anna, who I'm not sure which Anna it is, but that's us. And then we're going to share this later and we're all going to just chat. But I don't think you've ever met Marcia. She's one of our clients and originally met her through Mind Valley. She's a big Mind Valley fan, as am I. So she's one of my favorite clients. So
thank you.
Sweet. Well, happy.
And obviously we're all
lovely to meet.
Yeah, well, and lately a lot into biohacking, so I'm just starting to dive into this world. So.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Oh, sweet. Okay. So basically, so last year I organized a summit, a conference in London, and it was all about alternative health. And so it was this biohacking world. So we had Dave Asprey come and speak. We had 40 speakers. We had 50 exhibitors. We had 1,200 participants. So it was this big hullabaloo and this big fanfare, and it was incredible. But what I found was that it wasn't frankly, it wasn't focused on women, right? And I think that women's health is a very interesting and unfortunately very difficult thing because in research, oftentimes we aren't researched as females. And the reason being because, frankly, we're just too complicated. Our change daily, they change weekly, they change monthly. So if you're trying to have reductionist science, it's just not going to happen. So oftentimes what they do is they will do, researchers will do experiments on men and then try and kind of translate that to females. That doesn't really work. So what in my last year when I was traveling a lot and meeting a lot of female biohackers, we were saying, well, how do we change the name or change the game, right? How do we make it so that perhaps we can do more research on ourselves as females and have this idea of citizen science? So we started the group Women's Biohacking Collective last year, but because I kind of didn't have time, frankly, I didn't do much with it. And now this year, because I'm not focusing on the summit, I decided, full time, let's go and really try and understand women's health, not from the like frou-frou side of things, but truly understanding it with science and with evidence, and saying, okay, and the questions that we're trying to get to is things like, okay, is a ketogenic diet actually good for females? Is fasting for 24 hours, for 36 hours, for 72 hours, is that okay for females? And if so, when, right? Because throughout the month, that may change, right? It may be that a ketogenic diet is fantastic for certain women, for 2 weeks out of the month, but the other 2 weeks out of the month in your luteal phase, maybe you actually should be having more carbs, right? Because if you don't, then you're going to mess up your hormones. And oftentimes, kind of when I'm talking to people about hormones, it's, wait, hormones are kind of like Goldilocks, it's too much or it's too little. And we need to be just right in order for us to feel at our best. So yeah, so basically, Pam, we are relaunching May 1st. And it's right now the MVP is going to be an online forum, but I'm taking it off of Facebook because I don't really like where Facebook is going in terms of censorship. And I mean, anytime I go onto Facebook, I see things like, anything anti-vaccine is completely taken off. Anything about EMFs or 5G or anything like that, it's removed. And it's not necessarily to say that, those things don't have value. It's just that I'm not liking the idea that a community is policed by a third party, Facebook, or any other, the power to be. And I would like to have a little bit more control there. So it's an online, so it looks and feels very similar to Facebook. It's a separate app that needs to be downloaded. I would love for the two of you guys, or for anybody else who's on the call, to help be beta testers. It looks and feels like Facebook. You can create a profile, you can post, you can tag, you can link, you can you can all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then going forward, I'm going to start having interviews specifically with specialists to talk about female health. So we have John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. You guys remember that book from a long time ago?
Yeah, I didn't catch him at your summit, by the way, but I heard that he was awesome. Everybody said he was just awesome.
Oh, he was hip gyrating on stage.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Which clearly, anything that involves hip gyration is going to be awesome. Clearly.
Elvis wasn't wrong with that.
No, there's like a primal power there that's just undeniable.
And then we're going to have, so Carrie Jones, who runs the Dutch hormonal panel test. Mm-hmm. Dutch is by the way, if you're starting out with biohacking, or if you are just interested to understand hormonal imbalance, Dutch, DUTCH, is incredible. They send you a little kit at home. You pee on these little sticks, 5 times in one day. You send it off, and then they give you this whole beautiful analysis of, okay, are you too high in estrogen? And then what are the actual pathways, whether you can detox your estrogen or not. Because estrogen is fantastic for us, but not when it's too much, right? And not when it's if you think like a bathtub where you can't unplug the drain and then you can't detox it out. So once estrogen has done its job, you need to be able to detox it. And what Dutch does is it will show you specifically the pathways of by which you're able to detox estrogen. So it can then target and say, okay, perhaps you have too much estrogen, and that is a problem, not because it's too much, but because you're not detoxing it properly. And so therefore we can target specifically the detox pathways rather than just the fact that, oh, she has too much estrogen. So Carrie Jones, who's the chief medical officer there, I'm talking with her on Thursday, and then we're going to have kind of a podcast with her, and then for the members, we're going to host a Q&A. That way, when people really want to understand like specific questions, and I want to talk specific questions to, the specialists, you can ask the Q&A and we'll go straight to them. So I just talked.
No, I mean,
so apologies.
That's why you're here. Hi. Yeah, I mean, that's
I'm going to get.
No, it's adorable. So, I mean, all this stuff, I'm such a generalist. I don't know much about any of this stuff, which is why I love, this community and why I love having these conversations, because other than just going to my doctor and saying, hey, I want the deepest dive that you can do, it's just like a one-time blood test, and it's like, you're not getting really a lot of actionable information, because any given day things can be totally, that one moment when they took your blood, it's just one moment, and it's just not really actionable information. And I also would love to talk to you a little bit like your thoughts around DNA and epigenetics, and like for you, what are the things, okay, so we have a Dutch test, what are the other things that starting out, okay, do these 5 things or do whatever, so Dutch test, what are the other things that you're excited about that you do, that like when people are first starting out, you think these are the basics so you can get like a landscape?
Yeah. So I think for female health, specifically female health, if that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. I'm not sure who S. Mitchell is, but the rest of us are girls. And so, it's right now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about us.
So the two things that I'm really interested and focused in on is brain health and female health. Brain health, because I've had 6 concussions, because I'm clumsy and I like to live my life like crazy. And I was doing my master's in neuroscience. So I'm interested in the brain health, but then similarly female health, because, well, frankly, I want to know more about my own health. And so that's kind of why I've gotten interested in those 2 areas. So I think if somebody's starting out with biohacking from the beginning, often from a female health standpoint, I would say oftentimes people go straight for the hormones, right? Or straight to say, oh, I have a hormonal imbalance, I have adrenal fatigue, I'm just always exhausted. And so then they go down the hormone replacement therapy, or they'll look specifically first at hormones. I would say that's backwards, completely backwards. So to me, the first thing to start with would be your gut health, understanding how your gut works.
Great. Pause. How do you right now, what's the best way to understand your gut health right now? Because I did Viome and it was completely useless.
Viome's horrible.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. But
sorry.
Yeah. So what do you think is the best? I know I was talking to Boomer and he was saying there's like a three day or 3 times, like 3 days in a row. And between those 3 days, you get a better picture. Is that?
I mean, to me, the first question is, do you have a bowel movement first thing in the morning?
Yes.
That's the first thing. If you don't, then that's a problem. If you do, all right, at least we've narrowed that part out. But everybody should, you should be having a bowel movement first thing in the morning. That way you can see whether you're actually regular. From an imbalance standpoint, I would say the Genova diagnostics tests are really, really good. They're a little pricey, but they will specifically tell you your GI and whether you end up having any allergies, or so there's IgE and IgF, or IgE and IgG, and that will tell you whether it's a true allergy or just an imbalance. So for example, for me, I don't have an allergy to dairy, but I have eggs, but I do have an intolerance. So my stomach ultimately says, okay, this is not a pathogen that I necessarily need to fight off of, but it is something that disrupts me. So before I did those tests, and that's why the testing is quite expensive. So if you can't test, or you're not able to test right now with your doctor, I would say the first thing is to start with a journal, which is really boring and it's really annoying. But it is the best thing to truly understand where you are, where those balances could be. And the reason I say that is, a friend of mine, for example, she had IBS, right? She tried everything. She went to a doctor, and the doctor said, okay, start writing a journal. All doctors will probably start saying that, even if they have done a test for you. And what the journal showed her was that she would eat eggs, right? And she loved eggs. She was quite healthy. She was, high on protein and all that. And then she would have a delayed reaction 6, 7, 8 hours later. So she was having her IBS symptoms, but it wasn't because of something that she ate.
2 hours ago, something from the morning. So when she cut out eggs, then all of a sudden she ended up being able to control her IBS. I would say something that's, because what I don't really like about this biohacking world is that many of the things are quite expensive and are involved. I think a food journal is not expensive, and it is a little involved, but it's something that you can control, especially right now that we're in this crazy time of insanity. I do think that in general, most people, I mean, this is simple, but most people, like, sugar is a toxin, right? We know this. We all eat way too much sugar. Myself as well. I've been hounding on the cookies and all this stuff, right? What is sugar? Sugar is going to reduce your immune system. It's something that all of us should just completely remove from our systems. Dairy in general, a lot of people don't do well with dairy. So that would be one thing to look into. Eggs is another thing that I think in the health communities are highly touted as amazing.
It may be egg, isn't that the actual campaign?
Right. But it might be one of those things. So there's this thing called an AIP protocol, autoimmune protocol. It's a really, really, really tough diet. But given that right now we're on lockdown, it might be a good opportunity to do it. It basically is no grains, no sugars, no dairy, no nightshade vegetables. It's a really, really boring diet. And especially if you don't eat meat, then it can be quite tough. So for me, it ended up being that I think I could eat like cabbage and fish on the diet.
Did you do it choice or?
So I did it for 2 months. Just as a complete reset. So I did one of these tests, these de novo diagnostic tests, which one guy, if people are interested in learning more about not necessarily only their gut health, but just kind of cellular health, is this guy by the name of Dr. Scott Scherr, Scherr. He's fantastic. And he takes a little bit of a different approach to medicine and to health in general, in that he looks specifically at the cellular level and at the metabolite level. So if we zoom out, right, there's a lot of times people will say, okay, well, I'll look at the organ, right? So I have a heart disease, I look at my heart. I have, a fatty liver, I'll look at my liver. You look at the organs, right? What he looks at more is at just all across your body, where is the imbalance? So he'll do this test, and he'll read it for you as well. And this is the test that I did, which ultimately ended up saying, okay, this is where you have cellular imbalance. So we're not talking about whether your heart is not doing well, or if you have a fatty liver, or if your gallbladder isn't coping, or whatever it is. It literally looks at all the cells in your body, and it says, where is your imbalance? And then what he does is he says, okay, I'm going to heal balance out the cells. And it just so happens that when I balance out the cells, then a number of the diseases that people present with end up going away. Because his point is, diseases are not man-made, but man-named, right? A disease of cancer, let's say, the big C, right? Well, okay, yes, that is a disease that we as humans have named, but your cells don't know the names of these things. Your cells just say, okay, I'm imbalanced. So once he heals the imbalance, then it ends up being that many of these diseases go away. So that's the test that I did with Scott, and that's why I ended up doing the autoimmune protocol.
Because the test, what test does he use for that?
So it's Genova Diagnostics, and he uses 3 different tests. So he uses GI stool, he uses Nutraval, and he uses another one. And so when he combines all 3 of them together, then it gives him the full picture to be able to say, okay, this is what your GI tract looks like. This is what your methylation pathways are. This is what your potential, and then these are the vitamins that you'll need to balance out your cells. So that was something that was really beneficial for me, because as I kind of got into this world, I didn't know what I was doing, and I kind of still don't to some extent. And and what was really nice was, rather than just going to GNC or Whole Foods or whatever and just saying, oh, okay, well, this influencer who I'm following or this person has just told me to buy these supplements or these vitamins. Now after doing this test, I had a specific protocol to say, okay, I need to be taking vitamin A, vitamin K, NAC, this, that was specific to me and my imbalances. So while the test was kind of expensive, what it gave me was peace of mind, I suppose, because it felt like the supplements I was going to take were specific to me. And so now, 5 months later or whatever it is, I can go and retest and say, oh, okay, now I can see what I've done and how, how I.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like when you're talking about the methylation pathway, I of course did my DNA, my 23andMe, and I know that, my methylation pathway, I'm predisposed for it to not be so good in layman's terms. And so I started taking NAC, way back when, because of that. But again, when you do DNA tests, it's just a probability. You don't actually know what's going on in your body. So if there were ways to test and see what's actually going on and whether it's helpful or not, that would be great.
And I think that is like, I love that you just brought that up actually, because to me, going back to like genetics, right, or the genetics testing, I think it's fantastic, right? It's absolutely fantastic. And we've gotten farther and farther. My mom has had breast cancer twice and thyroid cancer, and her mom also had cancer. So it's like, okay, now we can be more informed about these things. But the problem is exactly what you're saying, which is genetics, they load the gun. But then if epigenetics, you don't actually know which of these things are actually coming to fruition and what parts of these things are actually showing up. Whereas these tests can actually say, all right, your genetics is this, but you know what, you're doing really well.
Yeah.
So, or the flip side, which I would rather know that now and correct that, before it's too late.
No, that's awesome. Okay. So we talked about the Dutch test for hormones. We talked about this gut health kind of in trifecta where, Scott Scherer was able to kind of diagnose where you are from the cellular kind of imbalance or balance perspective. So that sounds awesome, which we talked about the food journaling, because that's kind of a layman's way, even if you don't have access to these tests, to be seeing like, you can test them yourself, be like, if this, then that, and start to figure out, trends and figure out how you can be healthier based on how you feel and what's happening. So what are the other things? What about
the other thing? Yeah. So the other thing, there's so much. Okay. So the next one is for me.
Talking to you.
I also didn't realize that this was going to be a whole bunch of people. I thought it was just going to be you and me chatting.
Well, it kind of is just you and me, and just we invite other people, and then if people want to ask questions, they can. But it's selfish for me because I want to catch up with you anyway, and you happen to be incredibly smart and incredibly interesting, and I know I'm not the only person who would love to talk to you, so I just invite more people. And then later, if I ever get my act together with an infrastructure of social media, but that's a whole nother.
I would have put some clothes on.
You look so beautiful. Okay. Brain health or whatever.
So, right. So the next, to me, a massive thing is sleep. Sorry, I don't know what I just did to my thing.
You look great. Can you hear me?
Hold on. Let me just, how do I do this? All right, whatever. So the next one for me would be sleep. And the reason there we go. The reason I say sleep is because, well, fundamentally for me, it's just selfishly, I feel horrendous if I don't sleep, right? So if I get 4 hours sleep, then I'm just a terror of a person. But in general, right, sleep is an area where, and we all know it, we should be sleeping 8 hours. The science out there is actually 7 to 9 hours. Women, one of the studies that I've seen before is that women need around 20 minutes less sleep than men do. Take that for what you will.
I may be the only mom on the call, but babies breastfeeding every 3 hours. Yes. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. But sleep is one of those things where the more that we see, there's a really great book by Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep. Really nice. And he basically just says, sleep is the janitor. It cleans everything out. So we can have another day, we can have the next day. It is if we don't sleep, then our memory suffers, our moods suffer. They've shown some science in terms of impacting our telomeres. There's a lot of different things that happen with our sleep. And I think the key about it though is the consistency, right? and relearning how to live a diurnal life. So right now, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, I can't, I stay up really late at night, right? We're not programmed to do that. We as humans, as animals, we should be waking up with the sun, going to bed with the sun. That's our natural tendencies. That's what we should be doing. However, with the advent of technology and blue light and computers and Netflix and all of that, and stress and emails and just always living this lifestyle, we don't do that. And that, in my opinion, is one of the major reasons why we do have more hormonal imbalances and more inflammation. Because ultimately, when we don't sleep that full 7 to 9 hours, what are we doing? When we're shooting ourselves in the foot, we're having this idea of borrowed energy, where I'm going to borrow from tomorrow and into tonight and be waking up and staying awake from, until 2 a.m. Anyway, so it's just, to me, sleep is one of those things where it's a really easy hack, but it's one of those things that I think has a very large impact to health. So what I would do is, well, first is start shifting that clock back. So a lot of times, a lot of women specifically will say, well, I can't, check in with yourself to say, what you should be doing is waking up in the morning and having energy to be able to get through the day. If you can't, that's a big flag already of like, oh, I have to wait until that cup of coffee in order for me to feel good. That shouldn't be happening, right? You should be able to wake up, and then your cortisol should be spiking within the first 30 minutes. That's called the cortisol awakening response. And that should be spiking to get you out of bed, to get you going, right? And then at night, you should be able to fall asleep without sedatives, without alcohol, without sleeping pills. And then throughout the entire day, you should be full of energy. If that's not the case, then that is something where, it may be that you have this imbalance, you have this spike of cortisol, which ends up happening later in the day, which is a flip. And that is the thing that needs to be fixed effectively, right? Sorry, I'll pause there because I feel like I'm just kind of ranting.
I can no, I mean, and one of the things that you said, you're very self-aware person. It's one of the reasons why I adore you and we're such good friends. So you notice how lousy you feel on less sleep. I know a lot of people who maybe aren't as self-aware and maybe have stories around their capacity to be fine without as much sleep. And they tell themselves those stories. They're like, oh, I don't need as much sleep and I'm fine. And just kind of softening and helping people be honest around the reality of that. Like, okay, you may be fine, but you're cranky as all fuck. Like you're reaching for the sugar, you're grabbing all the caffeine, and then you're having trouble sleeping at night. Like, just, that's the thing. A lot of people I know closely, definitely aren't making those kind of good hygiene decisions around sleep and telling themselves that it's fine, and not tuning into how they feel, and they're believing their own bullshit. And that's just one of the things I see a lot around sleep. And some people, it's funny, people get attached, right, to old stories and old habits. And there's all the reasons why we do that. And just knowing that, there's like a readiness to any behavioral change. And so it may be that someone has an easier time changing their behavior around sleep than they do around food, or vice versa. They may have an easier time changing their behavior around food than they do about sleep. Both are really important. Sleep is my number one as well. And one thing I'll say, since this whole quarantine situation, the best part is that I now absolutely can go to sleep the same time every night and wake up the same time every morning, whether it's the weekday or the weekend. And it's the best thing ever. And I wake up a little bit later because really my circadian rhythm, thanks to the Oura Ring, I know for a fact I get most of my REM between 5:30 and 7. And so if I can sleep until 7, I get a really, really healthy amount of REM. But if I have to get up at like 6:30 or 6:15, which is a normal kind of weekday for me, I don't get the REM. So if I can sleep till 7 or 7:30, my sleep scores are awesome. I'm still going to bed most nights 10:30 at the latest. So my sleep scores, Aura has been cheering me on through this period because of this consistency. It's been easier, to be responsible with my sleep hygiene.
Yeah. And I think I love the fact that you're tracking it, because that is one of the things would be like, oh yeah, I slept fine. But then once you start actually tracking it with an Aura ring, and there's other trackers out there. There's Whoop, there's Fitbit, but I find that Aura is the best. Then once you start tracking it, then you start realizing, oh wait, I'm waking up in the middle of the night a couple of times. Like, what? And oh, that's right. The glass of wine that I had, the one glass of wine that really I didn't think, I didn't feel anything. Oh yeah, that actually spiked my sugars. And therefore my stomach actually had to digest that and had to work throughout the night, and therefore my sleep actually was not that great.
Yeah.
Right? You start noticing little patterns.
Yep. Yeah, the Aura ring has been great. And that's one thing that my husband actually now loves. It took him a while to adopt it. And now he actually just got the 2 people in his life that are, it's funny, they just got them too, but it's just funny how it eventually, if you kind of wait and just be patient and it's not your idea, there's such real value to that. It's kind of undeniable. Even if you resist it, you're like, it really makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And I think with sleep also, it's that comment of, oh yeah, I get enough sleep. I think whenever I hear that, I always say, well, okay, well, what does your sleep look like when you're on vacation? Because somebody says, oh, well, I get enough sleep, that's fine, I don't need more. Well, then what does your body look like when you don't set restrictions on it? And oftentimes I find that my girlfriends are saying, oh, I'm sleeping 10, 12, 14 hours. So clearly you've been in a deficit. Clearly something is going wrong. And I mean, I used to be one of those people that was just, I'll sleep when I'm dead, because there's just too much to go and there's too many fun things.
Fun to be had.
I'm like, I've got things to do. I've got emails to answer, which is fine. It's just, to me, I think all of the stuff about health is, what is your, what are you willing to give up? Because we're all going to be giving something up, and for some people they're saying, okay, well, I'm going to give up my, I may over time, right? Maybe you won't feel it now, but if you have consistent inadequate sleep for 10, 15 years, there is going to be some kind of a problem that ends up coming up, now how that manifests, I don't know, right? It could be just stress levels. And if you have high stress levels, that's going to increase your inflammation. Inflammation is going to be one of the key causes for many, many diseases right now, So could it be that maybe if you're not sleeping that much, oftentimes after a poor night of sleep, our hormones get messed up, specifically leptin and ghrelin. The leptin is the hormone that is telling you to leave food. I always remember it as leptin L, leave, right? Ghrelin is the hormone, ghrelin G, and it says go. So give me, or give, right? So ghrelin is the hormone that's telling you, I need more food, give me more food. Leptin is saying, all right, you're full, you're enough. Now, once you haven't had, and it depends per person, but oftentimes if you haven't had adequate sleep, over time, right? So let's say, imagine a week or a month of poor sleep. What are we all going to reach for? We're not going to reach for the kale salad. We're not going to reach for the nice, healthy things, right? We're going to reach for the fatty foods. We're going to reach for sugary foods. And oftentimes, because the hormones are messed up, they're not going to tell you to stop eating. They're going to still say, go, 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 give you more food. And so what ends up happening is poor night's sleep potentially could equal increased food consumption. And then over time, again, you're doing this for 10 years, 15 years, because you have to answer all the emails or be the perfect mom or be, always be on. And what does that look like for you? That looks like a 10-pound increase. That looks like a 5-pound increase, So I think sleep is one of those things where it's really underrated, and a lot of people just, push it off to the side. But consistent sleep over time, in my opinion, is one of the best and easiest health tricks you could do. And I think the other element to think about is that oftentimes people will say, okay, well, I can't fall asleep. I should be able to just hit my head on the pillow and fall asleep immediately. No, we often are like, there's a routine, right? There's a routine and a wake up increase as you wake up. So similarly, we should have a routine to go back down to sleep as well. So for me, I mean, I've noticed consistently, if if you guys have ever heard those blue blocking glasses. So it's these glasses that are, I mean, they look like Johnny Depp from, you know, Las Vegas or whatever that movie is called. You look a little crazy, or Robert Downey Jr., right? But they're really tremendous in terms of getting you
red light in your room. Like,
yeah. I mean, so what I've got
too. You're like, ooh, it's sexy in here, but it just helps you fall asleep.
Yeah. What I've got is, so I put on the blue light blocking glasses. On my phone, I've got Flux. I've got my phone goes completely red around like 9 o'clock at night, just so that I'm not on it, because I don't want to, you know, I want to dissuade myself from looking at it. Usually I'll have just one light on in my room. I don't go the full, you know, candlelight thing. I think if we all could, then sure, but it's a little impractical. If you got a Himalayan salt lamp, those are really nice, and it's just warm.
It's funny you say that, because one of my trainers at HACKD gave us 2 Himalayan salt lamps for Christmas, and I'm slowly emptying everything out of it. It's sad, but we moved into a lake house, and so I brought the Himalayan salt lamps up to the lake house, and I put them in the bedroom, and it was the best thing ever. It didn't occur to me that the Himalayan salt lamps would create that orangey red light. Should I just have them on like during the day, not as the only source of light? It was awesome. And I told the kids, because I had offered them to the kids and they declined them, and I was like, you guys missed out. Now you can't have them. They're mine.
I like that. Yeah, I find them really soothing. They're heavy, by the way. Like 20 pounds.
Really holding a rock.
Yeah. I also at night, the other thing to think about, and I don't know how many people talk about this in the health or in general, I talk enough about it, is EMFs. So electromagnetic fields. So this was an area that I started looking into a lot more after my concussions. So basically, we right now are surrounded by EMF fields, right? So anything that has a battery, anything that's plugged in, so your cell phone, your iPad, your laptop, your Fitbit, your Apple Watch, your Oura Ring, all of those things, they emit a field. It's invisible, you can't see it, you can't smell it, and it's really toxic. Or the studies that are coming out more and more are saying, you know, these might be a lot more dangerous than we thought. So I'm not, you know, this is where maybe I feel them. I literally, if I'm around too many devices, I get exhausted. I get completely wiped. I never had this before. And then when I had my concussion, oftentimes what people will say is after a concussion, you can become what's called electrohypersensitive, EHS. So there's a number of countries, France, England, Cyprus, a number of European countries that are show this as an ailment, as a disease, if you will. The US hasn't yet identified it or called it as such. But the point is that people are starting to say, you know what, these devices can actually impact our cells, impact our like how we feel, and therefore people can get a disease of EHS. So especially because we're all surrounded by so many devices. Oftentimes we have 3 devices around us at one time. I'm sure that everybody on the phone, if you have a phone nearby you, probably, you have an iPad, you have a computer that you're looking at this, 1 or 3 or somewhere more than that. And then if you're wearing a wearable, then you're increasing that. Basically what ends up happening, and is that these EMFs, they deplete us of electrons, right? Your body wants to be net negative, so your body wants electrons. What ends up happening when you're around devices is that they kind of steal these electrons, so you become more positive. You become more positive, you have more inflammation. So that's one of the reasons why anytime I'm feeling like I'm just exhausted, and most of the time in terms of symptoms, it could be just exhaustion, it could be headaches, it could be tangles up your arm, it could be just fatigue, overall fatigue. Those are typical symptoms of overdosing on having too many of these devices. quickest remedy is to go out and literally barefoot walk on the ground. It's called grounding. It sounds really hippie, sounds really woo woo. And yet, despite the fact that it sounds so hippie and woo woo, there is quite a bit of science out there. There's a guy by the name of Clint Ober. He has a documentary called Earthing, and he has done numerous studies on people who had MS, fibromyalgia, depression. I mean, you name it, he has had a number of different ailments, and he was able to help them out by just saying, listen, you need to go and sit on the grass for 20 minutes. And you can soak up those electrons. Mm-hmm.
Naked? Yes.
I mean, naked if you can, but it's like, I mean, as long as you're
naked, just go do that. The neighbor.
If we're already social distancing, you might as well. Yeah, I mean, for me, you know, you talk to my roomies. I mean, I will be sitting on the computer, right, working, and then I'm like, all right, I gotta go for a walk. And I go take my shoes off and I'm walking barefoot. I come back, I am a different person, completely different person, right? I'm bouncing full of energy. Part of that is grounding and being barefoot. Part of it is also the sunlight. But I think that a lot of times we think of ourselves as humans, we think of ourselves as able to just completely change the rules. And unfortunately, biophysics just doesn't let us do that. You know, we still need sunlight. We still need electrons. We still need water. You know, we're kind of a complicated plant, you know? And so I think so from an EMF standpoint, I would just say, one, take your phone off of radio, because oftentimes we don't need it. Keep it on Wi-Fi if you want. But I don't remember the last time somebody actually phoned me on the phone, you know, and if they did, then they'll just send me a text message and then I can call them. But you don't need your phone always pinging to the radio towers, because you're going to get everything that you need from Wi-Fi, which is a local connection and closer, and therefore it's hurting you less, right? Otherwise, there's some science or some of the studies that I've seen out there is that your phone is pinging to those radio towers once every 6 seconds, which that seems bizarre. It doesn't need to be, you know, talking to those antennas that frequently. So I would take your phone and not have it with a radio. Second, I would turn off Bluetooth unless you need it. Again, that's just additional communication and additional zapping. It's unnecessary. Third is I would get a case, a different EMF case. I personally really like Defender Shield. It's a nice EMF case. You put your phone in it and you can actually close it. And then if you really need to, you can put your phone next to your head. I would highly recommend never putting your phone near your head unless you have a protective case around your phone. Otherwise, you're just frying your brain completely. On that note, I would never ever use Bluetooth headphones, especially knowing what I know about your brain and frying your brain. Just not worth it to me. Doesn't matter if I don't have, you know, if I get the benefit of walking around my house. I personally would not have that. I would just use speaker. And then in terms of headphones, if you are going to buy headphones, there's these one called Air Tubes. The nice thing about them is that it's just like a regular wired headset, but then the last 6 inches or so of the headset is the wires themselves don't have metal in them. It's just plastic. And so the sound bounces through it, and the sound quality is just fine, but it just means that you have less metal going between your head, your brain, and the device that's going to be zapping your brain. So there's a company, again, Defender Shield does nice air tubes. Also, Dr. Mercola does a nice product for those as well. Those ones I would just test out which ones you like, because for me, I just like some of them just don't fit into my ears well. So yeah. And then at night, I think that's one thing that, you know, we don't need the Wi-Fi turned on at night. There's just no need, right? So from a sleep perspective, I know that I sleep better if I don't have the Wi-Fi on, or if I have some way to kind of protect away from the Wi-Fi. So for those 6, 7, 8, 9 hours, you know, your cells don't need the Wi-Fi to be communicating to the world. So I would just turn the Wi-Fi off, and I would put your phone outside the room if possible. I know that when I sleep, and if I forget to move my devices from my room, the next morning I look at my Oura ring and I'm like, oh crap, that was that. You know, I can literally feel it. My body literally feels that those devices are turned on and probably communicating or trying to get emails at 2 a.m. when I have no need to get those emails.
Yeah, all this stuff is so, I mean, I love that we've covered kind of a wide, you know, general, but then specific, actionable, you know, steps in lots of times what I talk about, kind of the 5 pillars of, you know, health and wellness. Fitness is going to be the sleep and the stress. And we didn't really talk about physical exercise. That's fine. We talked about food and food diaries. You know, I appreciate it. You, as always, you're such a wealth of information, and you're delightful. I don't know if anyone has any questions. Marcia, if you have any questions, I can unmute you.
Yes, just one actually.
Yeah.
So, you know, as I told you, I'm still diving into this like biohacking thing, and I just got the book from Ben Greenfield, and one of the things that I've noticed was precisely that he mentions a lot of things that studies were made on men, and then for women it could be different. So for instance, I was looking into intermittent fasting, and he was saying, you know, try the 16-hour cycle, but that for women could be 10 to 12 hours. So what is your take on that?
Yeah. So science is still out there. The research is still out, is what I'm just going to caveat that with. But yeah, 12 hours. I would stick to just 12 hours, especially if you're just starting out. Give yourself time. Give yourself a lot of time. That being said, you know, if you are healthy, if you have already been playing around with it, if it's something, you know, then you can start stepping it up. But I would nowhere start with 16 hours. I would not even try that, right? I would say, if you're not an intermittent faster, get to 12 hours and stay there for 2 weeks, stay there for a month, right? Get comfortable with that, and only then start shifting and start changing. Because I've had a couple of friends who, you know, we're all overachievers and we all want to do great. And they're like, okay, well, yeah, I'm just going to do, you know, a 3-day fast. You know, and they noticed that their hormones completely got messed up. One of them lost her period for 2 months. Another it just completely spiraled her out. So I think in terms of females specifically, we don't need as much as men do. Remember the kind of the Goldilocks analogy, right? We like a little change will do a massive change to our physiology. Because the other thing is also, we're already getting enough stress, if you think about it, from all the other things that are going on in life. And intermittent fasting is a stressor. It's a hormetic stressor, which is fine, it's a good type of stressor, but it is still a stress. So especially if you're just starting out, I would say 10 hours, 12 hours, let go, you know. One thing, I mean, for me, I personally am starting to do a little bit more fasting because I'm starting to get a little bit more comfortable with it. But that being said, I am sticking. So right now I'm playing with fasting around menstruation, because I'm finding it to be actually easier for me to fast my first 3 days of menstruation. So I'm just playing with that. But again, it's because I've already been doing intermittent fasting for the past 6 months or so.
I've done it in the past, actually. While I was, I went on this food diet program. It was a Wild Fit. I was kind of like learning how to eat. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but so I did that, and at one point we did fasting. So that's when I started to do, but we also took it easy. It started to be more and more hours, and I actually tried a 3-day with fasting, and I managed to do it. So that's why for me, the 12-hour fasting, it's relatively easy.
Okay, perfect. Then if it's relatively easy, then you can start pushing the edge a little bit. So for me, for example, I now fast once a week, every Tuesday. So right now I'm fasting, right? And for me, I find that that's good enough. right? I had tried a 3-day fast 2 months ago with Sean Wells, and my body literally was like, you know what? Nope, we are not okay with this. So I tried to go for the 72 hours, and at hour like 60, my body just said, forget this, But I think that's the intuition, right? And that's the like, all right, checking in with yourself and not making it an egoic thing, because I think oftentimes with fasting, the challenge is that it becomes this like, I must make it to this like hour, and it's like, why? What's like after 12 hours, you're already, your body is already, there is autophagy that's happening. There is benefits that you're receiving, right? So 12 hours is not that it's good enough, but it depends on what you're looking for. If it's just cleansing, then 12 to 24 hours is fine. If it's one of my friends, she, side note tangent, she started following this guy, Ray Mayor, right? Maor. He goes by the breatharian. And she did a 10-day fast with him. 10 days, complete fast, right? The science that's out there is saying that shouldn't be possible, that shouldn't happen. Now, she lost like 10 kilos, right? So she was doing it for a specific reason. And she was doing it with his team. It was all guided. It was all, it was very good. But at the same time, she hasn't had her period for 2 months now, So again, it's what are you willing to give up? Because I think in the name of health, you're always going to give something up. And it's just a matter of what are you giving up, and are you aware of like what that's going to look like for you, So in her case, she's like, all right, well, I'm going to learn how to control my cravings and learn that food doesn't control me, right? And that this thing is actually pretty powerful. And also she felt like she was too heavy, and she felt like she wanted to have kind of more control over how she felt physically. So for her, giving up her periods for 2 months, right, in the name of that was worth it, right? For somebody who's looking to get pregnant, absolutely not. Don't do that, So yeah, I think the science that's out there is saying 12 hours. For you specifically, if you've already done 3 days, then fantastic. I would say, and again, play with it, figure out what your body needs. But for me, after I had done that 3-day fast, or rather 60 hours, I said, okay, well, you know what, maybe once a week for 24 hours is actually feasible, and my body is okay with it. And let me play around with that. So that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Yeah, but awesome. Intermittent fasting is fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I did a lot of intermittent fasting when I started HACKD because I just was so busy. It was an easier way to live. It was just like, I was like, well, it's one less thing. If I'm not thinking about what the healthy food is that I'm going to be eating at this time, I'll just not eat. And then I have less to think about. So, and I was fine with it. It definitely didn't have any negative impact on me. I was doing like 16 hours pretty consistently during the week, but
I find it really interesting also to see how, like, because I'm a slave to my stomach. I love food. I love food so much. But to me, I was always known as the one who always carried snacks around, right? Because God forbid, like, I'd get hangry and I'd get mean. But now I'm actually quite enjoying the idea that, I have the power to choose what types of food I'm going to be putting into my body. So when I'm, traveling, and hopefully we'll be able to start traveling again at some point in the near future, we can choose and say, I'm not going to have the crappy airline food. I'm not going to have to succumb to airport food just because, all of a sudden I feel a little bit of a grumble. It's like, no, I actually have the power, and I have the power over my, my cravings, my mitochondria, and just say, no, I'm going to control you, but I think it's just really, it's a position of power. And I really quite like that.
Well, you are awesome. Speaking of power, you are such a strong, brilliant, radiant woman. And I'm so, so grateful that you've taken the time just to chat and go on such a broad kind of range of topics that are so helpful. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Sure.
Love you. And
yeah.
We'll do this again sometime because you and I could talk for like 18 hours. We didn't go deep on, I know, so many of the topics that you are just completely brilliant around.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I'm always down. Apologies also, guys. I thought this was going to be a chat with me and Pam. So
Well, that's what it is.
apologies. I just don't prepare.
That's honestly, it's like when I organize these, people are like, well, what's the agenda? What's the topic? I'm like, we're just going to talk. Like, I don't know what we're going to talk about. And I'm pretty honest about that. I'm like, I have no idea what we're going to talk about. It's just being in the moment and whatever flows, whatever I find genuinely interesting. I trust that someone else will too, but that's how this goes. So thank you, dear. I appreciate it, Marcy. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Everyone else on the call.
Of course. Yeah, I'll let if you guys have any questions or if I can help out in any way.
Yes,
then,
Dasha,
I'm here.
Follow W Health. Is that live?
Oh. Yeah, I suck at Instagram. I'm trying to get better. But my Instagram is _dash of health. My name is Dasha, so dash of health. And then Women's Health Co. So it's Women's Health Community is the idea. So it's W Health Co. For Instagram. So Wealth Co.
Awesome. You are divine. Enjoy that sunshine. You are sunshine, and we'll talk really
Thanks so much.
soon.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Bye.